In today's video, I'm going to show you how to add a design to a corner of a napkin. Hi, I'm Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts, and it can be difficult to figure out how to align a design, in this case a monogram, on the napkin, especially if you want to do it on the diagonal. But in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's get started. Let's talk about what we need. So I've got my embroidery hoop here. This is an SQ10. It's 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. This is going to work on my Janome CM17. So you don't need a huge hoop to do this. We're only going to be embroidering a small area on that napkin. Also, you need stabilizer, of course, and I like to use water-soluble stabilizer. I've got 2 layers here because I really don't want any stabilizer left on the back of that napkin. I want to be able to remove this after we're done the embroidery. All right, so there's those. And of course, you need napkins. Now, you may go to thrift stores like I like to do, or estate sales, and you may be able to pick up napkins like these. These are polyester, actually. I think there's about 8 of them, actually. So that was a good find. But I want to have a white napkins for what I'm doing today. I'm going to actually put a monogram in the corner of my napkin. So I got these ones here. You can see how big they are. I got these from Amazon. They're 100% cotton. They're restaurant quality. And I was really pleased with the size and the quality of them. So if you're interested in those, check up above or in the description below because I'll put a link to them. And when you're working with your napkins, you want to make sure that you wash them and dry them and press them first, especially if they're cotton, because they may shrink a little bit, right? So you want that to happen now before we do any embroidery on them. And when I have these napkins, I usually like to have one, as you can see here, that is my sample. So I will often do, my design. It doesn't have to be a monogram. It can be whatever you want. I would like to do that on a sample napkin first to make sure I've got lined up the way I want. I can make any changes I want. Sometimes I don't even embroider the whole design, but just enough to get an idea if it's working the way I want it to. Maybe if you're using several colors too in your design, you want to make sure that they're coming out and looking the way you hope that they will. So you've got your napkins all nicely pressed, and of course you're going to need thread. My machine's already threaded up. I like to use a polyester thread. I'm using a glide today, and I have the same thread in the top as in the bobbin for this situation because, again, I will be seeing the back of my napkin. I want to make sure that everything's going to look really nice. Okay. Few other things you're going to need. You need a design, right? Now, you may have a design that's already preloaded into your machine that you want to use. You don't need a huge design in the corner of these napkins. You might be surprised at how small a design you can use because the napkin is used for wiping your hands, your face, that type of thing. You don't want to have this huge embroidery on it, right? Because it's not very comfortable using them when it's like that. So I've got my little monogram here that I'm going to put on, and I bought this. It was a font that I bought, I believe. And so I just had this loaded up in my machine. I increased the size a bit to what I wanted, and I printed this out. And I wanted to make sure I printed it out with the registration lines on it. That's very important. And I cut this out. You can see I don't have a full page here because I'm going to be working with this, so I want it to be manageable. So if you have a design, do the same thing. Print it out, make sure the registration lines are on it, and then just trim it just a little bit outside those registration lines, and then it's good to go. I'm going to be marking my napkin, I was going to say, so I need to use a marking pencil that's erasable. I've got a water-soluble marker here from Clover. Again, if you're interested in that, check up above or in the description below. It's a fine line marker, so I like to have a fine line marker because, I don't want these big lines. I want it to be as thin as possible so I can accurately place my design. And then, because we're not actually going to hoop up the entire napkin, but you want to keep the edges that aren't hooped down. Some people like to use a spray, temporary adhesive spray. I do not like to do that for a number of reasons. So instead, I like to use either painter's tape to hold my napkin in place on the stabilizer, or you can also get this embroidery perfection tape. It's RK embroidery perfection tape. It works really well too. So something to keep your edges down. I actually found that, they didn't get caught or anything like that, but better safe than sorry, right? The other thing you're going to need for placement is a ruler. So I've got this, I think this is a 6 inch by 24 inch ruler. And the reason I have such a long ruler is because I'm going to use it on the diagonal of the napkin. I want to make sure it's going to go all the way across. So that is the next thing that we need to do. So I'm going to move some of these things out of the way here. And I'm going to get out the napkin we're actually going to use, which is this one here. And then I want to explain what I'm doing here with the ruler and the marker. Okay, because when I was first doing this, I was like, how am I going to get this placed on my napkin where I want it? How can I do this? You know, it's not that easy to play around with this napkin. It's a big size. So what I did was I want it to go on the diagonal. Okay, let me be clear here. Let me just show you what I'm looking at here. So I want it to go on the corner on a diagonal. And by the way, if you're working with napkins that aren't square, maybe they're rectangular, let's say, just make sure that you're going to put your design in the same spot on every napkin. All right, so you don't want one on a short side and one on the long side, for example. All right, so I've got my little design here, and I want to put it on this diagonal. So these registration lines here are very important. And in the center, where they cross, is going to be where my design is going to start when I put it on, when I put my napkin on the machine. That's where it's going to start. It's going to start in the center and then, you know, go out. So I want to know where the center is. I want to mark that on my napkin, and I want to make sure that it's going to be really nice on the true diagonal of my napkin. So I'm not good about doing that myself. So I want it to be on the diagonal, but is that like that? Is it a little bit off? Is it, you know, what is it? So what I did, and you may not be able to see all of this on camera, but I think you'll understand what I'm doing, is I took my long ruler and I put it down at the corner here, and I'm running it up to the diagonal on the other side. Okay, just take my word for it, that's where it is. And I do not need to draw that whole diagonal line. I'm more interested in what's going on in this corner, right? That's really all I'm interested in. So I just marked my napkin. Let's move this up a bit so you can see. Okay, so I marked my napkin here. Okay, so that's probably enough of a line. Okay, I was starting on the wrong angle there, so I had to move over a little bit. But that's where I want this to go. Now, that will tell me I can now line up my registration line here going through and check and make sure it's going the right way. Okay, and I can also see where the center is here. So I can pull this back and I can put a little dot or a little X or whatever you want to do. Get the cap off here. There we go. Put a little dot, okay? If you're off a tiny bit, it's not going to be noticeable, so you don't need to sweat too much about it, okay? But that's what the way I found was the easiest for me to mark this and then know, okay, when I get it into my machine, it's going to know that's the center. It's going to start from there, and we're going to go around like that. And that means that my design is going to look like this. I mean, my design can be anywhere I want on this corner, right? If I want it up higher, if I want it down, well, not that low, but lower, I can certainly do that, all right? So that choice is up to you. But now we've got our registration lines marked as much as we need to. And the next thing, of course, to do is to get it hooped up. So I would take my hoop, take out my little template here, which I will be using. Sometimes I don't pay too much attention to them. Things usually work out okay, but in this case, I do want to pay attention to it because this is sort of what's going to be happening here. My stabilizer is going to be underneath. My napkin is going to be on top, and this is what I'm talking about, this floating situation, okay? And I should actually say it's going to be like this eventually, okay? This will be underneath, my bottom hoop will be underneath, then my stabilizer over top, and then my napkin. And this is what is going to be hooped, okay, this area. So you can see here that I don't have anything in the hoop, as it were. So it's just flapping around, right? That's where I will use my painter's tape or the other embroidery perfection tape. And I would just tape it along here. I'll just show you this before I get in the hoop, what it would be like. Okay, so I can tape it here and I'll do the same thing over there. But before we get to that stage, what I want to do is to get this centered as much as possible in the hoop. Yes, I can make adjustments moving the needle position on my machine, but the closer we are from the start, the better things work, I find. So I've got my little template here, right? And this is what I want to do, is I want to have the center of the template over that dot I made on the napkin. Hopefully you can see that. All right, so that's what I'm looking to do. So I don't want to have my napkin in the hoop like this, for example, or like this, where this is my center, but I've, haven't got it centered in the hoop properly. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hoop it up, and I'm going to put some more tape down on the other side. Then, of course, I can remove that. And at that point in time, it's time to go to the machine and start getting things set up at the machine to stitch out that monogram. Now it's hooped up and ready to go to the machine, but there's one more thing I just wanted to mention to you. Done a pretty good job here of having the opening in the template match where I put that circle for the center. I also want to make sure that this vertical line lines up with the line that I drew as well, okay? Because I could be in the center, but you know, the line could be off, right? Which would mean that the napkin's off. So here we are, we're all good. Now I can take off that template, because you take that off before you stitch, right? Now we can go to the machine and we can make sure everything's set up to start putting that embroidery on the napkin. Before I start embroidering, let me just explain how I have the Janome CM17 set up. I'm using the white dot bobbin case. That's a higher tension case, so it's going to pull down the top thread. I've got a blue tip needle in. I've got my P foot on. And of course it's in the embroidery mode, and I have it set up so that it has my monogram ready to go. I've also turned up my speed all the way. Depends on whether you feel comfortable doing that or not. Sometimes I like to turn it down a little bit, but we're going to give it full power today, full power. Okay, so let's get started and see what happens. Okay, I'm just going to stop here and get rid of this extra thread that was there at the beginning. Just make sure you're careful and pull the thread back out of the way. And if you can't tell what what thread is what, maybe wait a little longer before you clip it off. And by the way, I double checked to make sure that it was all centered before I started. If you have any issues, you can always move your needle over just a little bit. It might need just a fine adjustment. Okay, let's go again. All right, so we're done. That design took 3 minutes total, so not too bad. If you want to make a series of these to give to friends, a whole set, maybe 4 or 6 napkins, doesn't take too long to do each one. Okay, so now we're done. What's the next thing we do? Well, we have to take our hoop off, right? So let's do that. And this is what we have. Now, of course, we're not done with this napkin because it has to come out of the hoop. I have to take the tape off. I have to take the marks off. I have to take the stabilizer off. Let me go do that, then I can show you what it looks like. Now, before I show you what the napkin looks like, I just want to mention a couple things to you. You may have noticed that below my videos, I have a join word that is there, and you might wonder, what's that about? Well, that's your opportunity to support the Chatterbox Quilts YouTube channel by joining the Patchwork Pals YouTube membership. For a very small monthly fee, you get lots of perks like early access to all my videos. And to do that, just click on the join and you can get all the details and you can become a Patchwork Pal today. Now let's take a look and see what my napkin looks like. There we go. I've cut off the water-soluble stabilizer and sprayed the water to get my marks off and sprayed to get the rest of the water-soluble stabilizer off on the back. And then I have this beautifully monogrammed napkin. So I hope you'll try this because it's a lot of fun. It doesn't take too long to put a small design on there. And as I mentioned, they make great gifts for friends and family. Now you might be wondering about different kinds of stabilizers and when you use them because there's an awful lot when you're talking about machine embroidery. So if you're wondering that, don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video that has all the information that you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.